Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And for those of you who are here with us for the first time, Min and I are startup investors in the future of work, companies that work on the future of work. We take one of your questions per day. Min?
And today we have one that I feel like lots of people, all year round, especially during, sorry about that. There's background noise. But how do I position myself for a promotion?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, typically not from startup folks where what your level is can matter a lot less, but anybody in a big established organization might think this from time to time. And the thing that I'd say is what you need for almost anything you want is a model in your head of how does the other side, whatever that side is, people, an organization, a test, a process, how does that side make decisions? And I'll just say that there are different kinds of promotions. So let me just separate them for a moment because the strategies are slightly different. One is what I call a promotion in place, which is like, hey, I'm doing the job, but I really deserve to be a senior vice president instead of a vice president. And another is, and they're a bit blurry boundaries, but another is a promotion of role, which is like, look, I know you're looking for somebody to run this team. Because we're trying to hire somebody, I should be the person who you should put in place to run this team or take over this new business or something like that. And in both cases, what's often common is that more than one person is involved in the decision. And so the first thing you guys got to do is think about who is making this choice. Sometimes it's the boss who has the final say, but the final say could be influenced by a lot of people. Somebody may have veto power over it. And then you have to think about, okay, well, who will be my champion in doing this? It's just like any other sale process. If you read the Pete Kazanji book or, on sales, you have blockers who might stand in my way, and then think about each of their arguments, and then think about from their perspective, how do they likely read you and do you set it up? If there's one core insight though, I think many people try to make the argument on the merits. They like go into their boss and they're like, James down the hall, he's doing blank, our partner, and I'm doing blank too, and therefore I deserve to be a blank. Every single time I've done that in my own career, and many times when I've seen others do it, it just fails because it turns out there's some unstated reason why that's the case. Oh, like that person was that person's boss before, and they don't want to give you the same title because they don't have as close a relate, whatever. The only reason that I've seen that consistently works well is you figure out a way that the people involved have no choice but to promote you. And that could be because of some basic fairness issue where they're worried about being exposed on a liability to do something unfair. That's a bit of a hostile reason. It can be the valid reason, but oftentimes it's that they might lose you and they don't want to lose you, or the person who they put in your place is likely to be damaging, that kind of a thing. And getting a must-do reason for a promotion in place is often a lot harder. Last thing I'd say, and then, whatever, I'll shut up, is thinking carefully about whether to bundle or unbundle the promotion in title / role from money is a really important choice. In certain organizations where things are very routinized, being promoted does effectively mean getting paid more because they can only pay a manager at this level and a director at that level, and it's like rules. In other organizations or with other roles, that may not be the case. And the more senior you become, I often find the less frequently those two things are coupled together. And so you may want to start doing the job and say, hey, I'm doing the job. You might as well just recognize the fact that I'm doing it and ask for the money later. Or you might be more interested in the money than in the role description, because thinking about like, why do I even care about what my role description is if it's not about what job I'm doing or what money I have is also a valid question. There are reasons to care, but those pieces of what job am I doing, how is my role described internally, externally, and the money can oftentimes be separated to your advantage.
Yeah, and then what that reminds me of is I think there was a previous episode that we talked about where like why should somebody hire you, and there's that you were talking about like de-risking you to the employer, and so part of I think how you position yourself for a promotion is like understanding like how do you de-risk yourself in your like bosses or your manager's eyes.
100%. I mean, I'd even say once you're already sitting there, in a certain sense, you're de-risked. What you want to do is load risk on the alternatives to you. Or the alternative to not promoting you. And you have to do it gently because, again, load too much risk and lay on the train tracks of like, I'll only I'll only stay at this company another day if you make me an assistant vice president tomorrow. You might win the battle and lose the war.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then the one other thing I would say is like, in terms of de-risking, like recognizing how to position yourself as like a valuable asset. That is like, if you get this promotion, like you are like more able, like more capable and better able to do your job more effectively. Like, I think that is also a compelling, I don't know if I heard that from, somebody I was working with. I'd feel like that was a good way to position.
Yeah, and a lot of this often depends on what the interests are of that specific person. I mean, I think this is a general negotiation thing in negotiating with companies is, I think that would work very well on me and particularly like I try to think of myself as a person who, what I care about is, does the team work well? Do we do our jobs exceptionally well? And for each person on our team, is their experience with us possibly going to be an inflection point in their career where it dramatically changes the trajectory of what they were doing? But if what I was interested in was getting promoted myself, maybe the biggest thing I'd care about in promoting somebody else is who can take on a bunch of my shit work so that I can be freed up to play for that promotion. And so you have to have not only a mental model of who, but of what their interests are and how they think about them really, and not just what they tell you. So don't be a sucker for just listening to what people tell you. Try to guess at what they really want and give it to them. That's what I got.
Totally. Well, that was another day of This Is Not Advice. And then I think tomorrow you'll be back, Roy, with I think a special guest. And so tune in.
Well, it's been fun to have guests. I also really appreciate, Min, when we get to do this. And, for those who are listening in, not advice, because the situations are specific to you. Anybody giving you advice is usually trying to talk their own life story up and justify their decisions or experiment through. You got to live your life. We're just giving you ways to think about it and you decide. To be continued.
Totally.